Chairman Bates, President Ruther, representatives of the former organizations which have joined here today, the Executive Board of the CIO, Executive Council of the American Federation of Labor, and the delegates in attendance at this most important convention. I feel that this is the most important trade union development of our time. Whether we deserve the attention or not, I am quite sure that the eyes, surely of workers all over the world, are on this meeting this morning. Millions of workers, millions of ordinary people behind the iron curtain of despotism and degradation are looking towards us this morning with eyes of hope. Many millions more who live in the shadow of that curtain of iniquity are, I am sure, praying for the success of this organization which we're bringing into being today. I can readily understand the feeling of elation which I sense present here today among the delegates and surely among the officers over the end of these years of division and of the inauguration of this new united movement. I too share that feeling of elation that we have come this far along the road to unity for all labor in America. But when I think of the opportunities that lie ahead and of the tremendous responsibility that goes with those opportunities, I give way to some sober thought as to our obligation to meet the test not only of grasping these opportunities for moving forward, but also of removing the obstacles and solving the problems that will lie in our path, and of meeting the test of great responsibility that goes with an organization of 15 million citizens in a nation of 160 million people. I think in approaching this task, we should take a serious and good look at ourselves to make sure that we know just what our obligations are, and to make sure that we have the type of organization that can meet these obstacles and grasp these opportunities to better the day, both in life and of work, of the great mass of the workers of this nation. We must think in terms of the true meaning of a trade union movement, a movement that has for its sole, definite, and single purpose the advancement of the welfare and interest of the great mass of workers who are part of this movement. That must be the motivating influence and the banner under which we move forward. Let all of our actions be keyed into that simple, plain principle that a trade union has no other reason for existence than the job of carrying out and carrying forward and advancing the interest and welfare of its members. So in building and advancing the cause of our unions, don't let us think in terms of personal prestige, of having a big union for the sake of having a big union. Don't let us think in terms of a great big financial structure and of great power. Let us think in terms of the simple philosophy of those who founded this movement of advancing the cause of workers. And as we go forward together in this movement, let us stop thinking in terms of prior labels. Let us make up our minds that from this moment forward, there is just one label on all of the organizations and all of the membership of this great organization, and that label is AFL-CIO and nothing else. And let us apply this philosophy in terms of good faith, determination to live together, to work together, and to think together for one united organization. We have brought into being this morning a trade union instrumentality to carry out the work we've all been engaged in, and to do it a little better, we feel, than we are able to do it as a divided movement. We have a constitution that we worked many, many long weeks upon. We make no claim to perfection for it, but we do feel that it's an instrument under which we can live, and that it carries with it the principles which we've always had in this movement, in this country, of complete and absolute autonomy for each and every organization to run its own affairs. And it contains the voluntary principle upon which our movement was founded in the early days. It was once said many years ago that that government is best which governs least. It's in that spirit that we wrote this Constitution. And after all, we're practical enough to realize that the words in the Constitution would have not very much meaning if we did not enter into the work of this organization in a spirit of mutual respect, a spirit of cooperation, and a spirit dedicated to the principle that unions are created for the benefit of the workers that toil for wages. We must grow this trade union movement with the nation, but we must grow the right way. Let us organize the unorganized. Do not let us waste our time and our efforts trying to reorganize those who are already organized. Let us try to bring the blessings and benefits that we know are inherent in a trade union movement to the millions of those who are still unorganized. Then, as we face the future in this morning, where there is a great spirit, as I said before, of elation and happiness, we should give some sober thought to the kind of world that we live in, to the problems that we have at home and the problems that we have abroad, to the problems that we'll face in the new industrial age which is coming upon us, to the problems that has been ever present in the conduct of our relations, the relations of our country with the other nations of the world. Let us understand that despite the many advances, despite the great achievements of the organized labor movement over the years, we still have those who believe that we'd be better off without unions, those who believe in the archaic traditions of the 1880s and 1890s, those who believe that America is built from the top down, that if you keep the great corporations fat and wealthy, that enough will trickle down to keep those at the lowest level of our economic structure happy and contented. We still have this opposition, and the opposition has made its mark in the last 7 or 8 years. We would be less than truthful if we did not admit to ourselves that the legislative trend, insofar as liberal and remedial legislation is concerned, legislation in which we have a vital interest, that legislative trend in the last 8 years has been backwards and not forward. And it's up to us, using every weapon that we have at our command under the Constitution of this country, using every method that's legal to advance the cause of the workers, it's up to us to reverse that trend. We've come a long way in building up the standard of life and of work of the people of this great nation. But we can't say that we've come all the way. We can't afford to look back for any other reason except to draw from the experiences of the past in order to apply their lessons to move forward for the future. We have no right to look back with a feeling of satisfaction, because there is still much to be done. We still need better schools and more schools for the children of America. We hear from time to time the great orators of our political parties, especially during the season of the year when the schools are graduating their children, about America's most precious possession, the future of America, the children of America. And still, we are in the disgraceful position where we cannot say that we have adequate facilities to educate and train those children. And we've got to wipe out this idea that this is the job of each and every little community, no matter what its economic or financial position might be. If the children of America are the nation's wealth of the future, if they are our most proud possession, then they are the concern of the entire nation, and the nation itself should take a hand through federal aid to education to see that we have good schools for these children. Then we have housing. That's still a problem. Yes, we've made some forward strides, but we still have a long way to go. We still have thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of people who are living in slums, who have not as yet received the full benefits of which we like to boast, of the great and high standard of life that we have here on our American continent. We need better roads. We need to improve our Social Security system. We need to bring about a system of medical care that will take care of the health of the nation as a whole. These problems must be met. And then we've got the problem that strikes right home, the problem of preserving the right of workers to improve their conditions through the instrumentality of a trade union. The problem of seeing to it that the Labor Management Act on our statute books is made fair to both labor and management, and not an instrument by which management, if it will, can destroy or hamper the development of trade unions. We've got to amend that act, and we've got to wipe off the statute books of 18 states, the so-called right-to-work laws, which are laws destructive of our union security. Then we must think soberly of our position as a nation and of the things that we like to feel are really in the tradition of America. We speak about the freedom. We speak of the Founding Fathers. We speak of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And I think we have some right to be proud of those things, to be proud of our tradition and our heritage. But I think we have no right to complacently sit by as long as those rights are denied to any portion of the population of this great country. We've had striking evidence in the last few weeks, if we needed any such evidence, that the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights and the civil liberties that we all like to boast of do not prevail in certain parts of our country for people whose skin is a little different in color than that of ours. We have men who call themselves statesmen, who are public servants elected by the people, and still who defy, in the interests of white supremacy, defy a decision of the United States Supreme Court in regard to desegregation. Yes, they're amending the Constitution to suit themselves insofar as its application is concerned. And what they're saying in effect is that this Constitution does not prevail in the Southland. And I say to these people, a good many of whom call themselves Christians, that when they go to church on Sunday, they should remember that the words "and thy neighbor as thyself" are still an integral part of the first commandment, and they should apply that in dealing with their fellows. And then we've got to give some sober thought today to our duties as citizens, taking our place in the community life of the nation. as we see them. We have no commercial, political, or financial reason to see peace where there is no peace. We've been meeting this Cold War situation for many years, beginning with the Truman Plan in '46, the Marshall Plan, NATO, Point 4, and everything else. And I think up till this spring, meeting it quite successfully. Then, of course, we run into the new technique, the new smiling face technique of those who would destroy us and destroy every right that we hold dear. And at the conclusion of the summit conference in July, we were told there was a great success, that the spirit of Geneva had lessened tensions and everything was going to be fine. And we were told that by the heads of our government. And I say to you here today that when we were told that, the American people were hoodwinked. It was not a success I wish to come to. Berlin is no longer under four-power rule. It is under the rule of the satellite state, the so-called East German Democratic Republic. And as a contribution to lessen tensions, we see Egypt armed by a communist satellite for attack. And then we see the tour of slander in India, where the top people representing the Soviet Union are using the Indian country as its sounding board for their attacks upon the free nations of the world. And then we see the Foreign Ministers' Conference 5 weeks ago, which was supposed to carry out and implement the agreements reached at Geneva in July. And there we see a complete repudiation of everything that was done at July high-level conference. And then we see the stepped-up war preparations of Moscow's partner in the Far East. And let me give you an idea of the people we're told to extend the hand of fellowship, an idea of their philosophy. The head of Moscow's Far East branch, Mo Zedong, in a manual distributed to his people a few months ago, had this to say: "Our war is sacred, just and progressive, and aims at peace. We aim at peace not only in one country, but also throughout the world. And we not only aim at temporary peace, but at a permanent peace. In order to achieve this objective, we must wage a life and death war until our aim is achieved." That's the philosophy of Moscow's Far East partner, who are now stepping up preparations for war on their neighbors. And then we've seen the increased pressure on the Adenauer government. We've seen in the last week or so the H-bomb blast in the Gobi Desert. And then just to show that they're just the same at home in applying their ideology, we had a new purge where some of the top men, assistants to Beria, were put up against the wall and destroyed. This, then, is the spirit of Geneva. This is the thing that come out of Geneva in July, the child of American faith and Soviet fraud. And we've got to think of this thing because we know that the kind of instrumentality we're creating here today cannot and will not exist unless it exists in an atmosphere of freedom and under a system of government such as we have. The businessman, perhaps, can afford to fall for this communist propaganda. And of course, the politician, from time to time, he sees peace and progress in these negotiations where there is no peace and no progress. Labor has never been neutral in its relations with dictatorship or tyranny. We were never non-Nazi. When Hitler was riding high, we were anti-Nazi. We were not non-fascist. In the days of Mussolini, we were anti-fascist. And we're not non-phalangist in regard to Franco's Spain. We're anti-phalangist. And we can't afford the luxury in these trying days of being non-communist or neutral. We've got and must and shall be anti-communist. In meeting all these problems at home and abroad, we must be mindful of our duty to the nation as a whole. Because, as it was well said here a few moments ago, what's good for the nation is good for us. We've got to show the American people that this movement, this organization, is dedicated to the good of our nation, to the good of all of the citizens of our nation. Who can deny that higher wages and better working conditions are not good for America? Who can deny that the purchasing power built up largely through the instrumentality of free trade unions is not the most vital factor in this dynamic economy of ours? Who can deny that trade unions are dedicated to the welfare of the nation as a whole? Yes, we're going to use every means at our disposal to carry forth our program, both at home and abroad. We're going to continue to support the International Confederation of Free Trade Unions in its fight to keep free labor free and to strike the chains from those who are enslaved behind the Iron Curtain in due time. We're going to use our economic weapon in dealing with the employers, if that is necessary, in order to get a fair share of the wealth that we jointly produce with management. And we're going to meet those who would destroy our movement and who would turn back the clock. We're going to meet them on the political front, if you please. I'm somewhat amused by this hue and cry about labor political activity, about the labor bosses controlling votes. I'm sure they know that that we don't control votes. No one can tell the American worker how he's got to vote, and that includes me, you, and everybody else. I sometimes wonder, these people who are making these statements about a labor political power, I wonder if their consciences are starting to bother them. What is our political philosophy? Our political philosophy is to inform our own people on the issues that they have before them, and in particular on the issues that affect the welfare of our own people. Are members of the United States Senate opposed to an intelligent electorate? I thought that when they run for office, and I've heard many of them, I thought they always said they wanted the public to be informed. They wanted them to be knowledgeable about these issues. Well, that's what we want. We want our people to be informed on all the issues facing the electorate, and we want in particular for them to be informed on the issues that affect their lives and their daily work. And they're worried now about a Labor Party. Well, I don't see any sentiment for a Labor Party. And I don't see any sentiment for Labor to take over one of the existing parties. That's the new one now. We're going to take over one of the existing parties. Well, I know this, that we have a right and a duty to meet those who are opposed to us wherever they present the challenge. In the early days, we met the starvation method. We met the company thug, the company spy, the company injunction, and the company judge. We met the American plan, so-called, designed to destroy our movement. And now where is the challenge? The challenge is in the legislative halls. And our answer is political education and political activity. Because if we're going to carry on this work, they have proved beyond question that they can hamstring us and render us impotent by adverse legislation. And if we're going to carry on this work, as we must meet that challenge in the legislative hall, and that means political education and political action. As I said before, in carrying out our work, we must do so in a way that will commend us to our neighbors. After all, the American worker is just one segment of this great big family that we call the United States of America. A big segment, if you please, but still a segment. We must carry on our work in a way that will bring commendation from those with whom we come in contact. We must try to conduct our affairs in consonance with the high principles upon which our movement is founded and which we are attempting to carry forward. I feel this we can do. For myself, I appreciate beyond question, beyond doubt, beyond means to express to you the confidence that you've shown, that my colleagues of the AFL-CIO have shown, in entrusting to me this very responsible task. I'll give myself to it as best I can. I'm not giving to predictions. I tell you now, I will never surrender principle for expediency. I tell you now that insofar as it's my place to influence decisions, those decisions will be made without regard to where the union formerly was and without regard to how big or how little a union it is. Let us remember that on this very, very happy occasion that we have merely taken the first step, that we've created a tool, an instrumentality, something that we can use to carry forward for the people we represent. And if we carry forward in good faith in our relations with one another, and true to the principles and traditions upon which our movement was founded, I'm sure that we can succeed. So let us face the future, confident beyond question that the cause we espouse is a good cause, confident beyond expression that the things we ask for are just and proper. And if we do this, I am sure that we will. Then with God's help, we shall not fail. Thank you.